All right, Sturdy for 30 this week. We've got former Illini basketball player Mike LaTulip, perhaps more famously known as the head coach of the Illini team in the TBT, the basketball tournament. He got a lot of press, got some ESPN time, some FaceTime on ESPN. How's things going, Mike? How you doing?
Things are going well, man. Things are going well. There's actually some flurries down in Austin, Texas, if you can believe it. But weather down here is a little bit better than the Midwest, that's for sure. Actually, I got out to golf yesterday,
Oh, jeez.
which was good. But yeah, everything's going well. Obviously, from a fandom perspective, it's been nice, seeing this Illinois team and really just how far they've come in the beginning of the season and being able to watch that night in and night out has been awesome. But overall, man, just enjoying life.
Yeah, that's pretty wild when you can go from golf one day to snow the next. So that's the United States for you. I mean, that's Texas. That's Texas. We always say that's that's Illinois, but Texas too, I guess. So, but you'll probably the difference in Texas. You'll probably be golfing again tomorrow. So
Yeah, I mean that's yeah, I think it was like it was close to 60 yesterday when I was out there. Right now it's about 38 and like flurries, kind of rainy, but it's amazing the guys that I played with yesterday. Um it gets down to like 50 degrees and they're like, I don't even know why we're out here. They're all from Texas and from Austin and or from like the Corpus Christi area, and they're like they're freezing, and I'm like, dude, this is nothing. This is absolutely nothing compared to the Midwest. I was up in Ohio a couple of weeks ago, or maybe a couple months ago, with one of my buddies that used to play at Wright State, and we're like, you know what? It's 36 degrees. It may rain a little bit, but like, let's just go get around it. Like, we
Yeah.
love playing golf, and I underestimated what cold and rain does. It was miserable. So to be able to be out there, it was sunny. It was like 48 degrees when we started our round, and I'm like, this is awesome. They're like, oh, this is terrible and freezing. But it's just, I don't know, the Midwest kind of calluses. Yeah, your it builds up a callus a little bit for all the weather that obviously I've experienced down here. It's nothing.
Yeah, I'm that guy that wears shorts until there's snow on the ground. So I get it.
That
You're
doesn't
happy.
surprise me for whatever reason. That doesn't surprise me, man.
Yeah, it's one of those things. When I coach high school softball, I always tell them I've got to wear I got to wear shorts so you can't whine about it being cold. If I'm in shorts, you can't whine. So that's my philosophy.
That's a good tactic. That's a
So,
heck of a
see,
tactic there.
hey, there's my coaching philosophy. So next year in the basketball tournament, you can use that one, whatever. Maybe you can wear like a parka and say, hey, you can't whine about it being hot in here because I've got a parka.
Exactly.
You can try that. But so the basketball tournament was obviously a pretty great experience for you. You've talked about it before, but recap that and how that came about and what you're doing right now. Are you recruiting right now? Find
Yeah.
players for next
Yeah.
year?
Yeah. So it's amazing. When I first got into it, about, let's see, this would have been in September of 2019. It would have been, and so about 10 months before the tournament was when it all started. And you obviously you have a goal in mind in terms of guys that you want to have on the team. And I was putting out feelers just to see if people would be interested. And quite frankly, I was putting out feelers during the 2019 TBT, before I even knew that I would be putting together a team, just to be like, hey, would you guys play in this? What's the deal? And for the most part, everybody's response was, yeah, I'd for sure play in it. So by the time, we had the team, it was really a pretty seamless process in terms of getting the guys. Now obviously COVID made it a little bit, threw a wrench into that, but throughout the preparation of it, it's really neat because at times, you're like, man, I can just, kind of put together the offensive scheme I see fit, the defensive scheme we see fit, and then to be able to put together a roster of not only guys like, hey, let's go get the most, the 9 most talented guys we can find. It's, let's find actual pieces. Let's find complementary pieces. There's, like having a guy, it's great to have a guy like Mike Dom, but it's also great to have a guy like Michael Finke who, he'll do exactly what he's told. He's a great teammate, doesn't care about how many shots he gets, doesn't care about the minutes he plays. He just plays hard when he's in there, and he's rooting these guys on the sideline. And like, that's what I realized when we went to the tournament. That's the differentiator for teams that win and teams that don't. I mean, for example, like, you have other teams in the tournament that, they make the mistake of bringing like 12 guys, and 12 good players who probably could play minutes, and it never works out because there's no chance everyone's going to be happy.
Right.
And I realized that too. I mean, we didn't have many issues with that, with playing time and whatnot, but I was doing all the substitutions, and these are guys that I had played with. So it's a little unique when I'm like, yeah, you're coming out. You know what I mean? It's but part of it was just gaining their trust. And I remember Kyle Vanalis, who really helped us in the Carmen's Crew game. Finky had said like, hey, we should probably reach out to this guy. And I watched some film on him, and I liked what he brought to the table from just kind of an off the bench scoring punch. And but the amazing thing is, once we got to Columbus, we showed up for our first practice, and he comes in and he's like, did you hoop? Like, did you hoop anywhere? Like, did you hoop in college or something? And like, he didn't know. And I was like, yeah, I did. So I knew that, in the first practice, to get these guys to respect me. And that didn't really need to happen for the guys that I played with. Like, they understand, what I know about the game, that I'm going to try to put them in the best position to succeed. And but for a guy like Kyle, and I've known Billy Garrett, I played against Billy Garrett for a long time. So so he was good. But with Kyle, I was like, you know what, I'm getting the feeling that I need to win his respect. So at the end of practice, what I did was I came up to him and I said, hey, let me know if you want to lose in a shooting competition. And he's like, what are you talking about? So him and I just started playing, just kind of trading threes. And it was like the one way where like, I was hitting shots, and that was, he was like, okay, wow, like, you can play. And I think that went a long way with him just kind of respecting things that I said or things that I called. And but the process as a whole, what was really neat was seeing all these guys play together. And I know I've talked about it a lot, but seeing Andres Feliz play with Malcolm, and seeing Nana Egwu play with Laurent again, and putting all that together, and then obviously getting a guy like Mike Dom, who we were obviously extremely fortunate to have, and he's a top 10 all-time scorer in the NCAA, and in practice it was amazing. I had all these different guys who didn't really know about him. They had heard about him, but we do 5-on-0, and then we do like some walk-through stuff or go live for a little bit, and the dude doesn't miss. Like, he doesn't miss. And I remember like Nana came up to me at one point, Malcolm came up to me at one point, and was just like, dude, like, who is this guy? Like, why? Like, he hasn't missed for like 3 days. And I'm like, yeah, dude, that's what we're getting. Like, it's the Dominator, man. So so yeah, no, overall, and then you look at a guy like Andres Feliz, who I didn't know Andres, quite frankly. Like, I had never met him in person. Like, we had shared messages and talked on the phone, but we actually met for the first time driving up to Columbus. I was coming from my parents' house in Nashville, and I had to pick him up in Kentucky at his wife's house, and he hopped in the car, and we drove about 3.5 hours up to Columbus, and just getting to know each other. Like, it was just like, he literally got into the car and he was like, I'm Mike, nice to meet you. And then we made our way up there, and he's just an amazing kid, and that's why I was so excited to see the success that he had in the tournament, and seeing him go toe to toe with a guy like Aaron Kraft, and best him in certain areas was really, really neat. So yeah, overall, a heck of an experience that I'm glad we could do, and I'm glad it can set the foundation for what we want to do moving forward with this team, because I think it's something that's really cool, not only just in a pandemic where there's not much else going on, but every year kind of making this an annual occurrence, and something that Illini fans kind of in those dog days of July, when it's all just like, hey, how's training camp going for the football team? There's other things that even just for the media, like that, I think that was something that we didn't even think about. And then it was all of a sudden, Derek Piper and Jeremy Werner and all these guys that, Scott Ritchie, like, they all have to cover, like, you have things to cover. And I think in the middle of a pandemic, that's you can only do so many like flashback stories, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
right.
so it was nice to kind of give them some live sports. So overall, 10 out of 10, amazing experience that we're looking forward to doing again in 2021.
Yeah, you got some guys there too that maybe didn't get the opportunity at Illinois, whether it's Malcolm Hill, Andres Feliz, to play in an NCAA tournament. kind of put them in that
Sure.
one and done situation. So it's fun to see those guys one more time, get that opportunity, and hopefully they'll be back this summer. I know they seem pretty excited about doing it again, running it back. So that sounds good. So as you go, does that make you want to get into coaching? I mean, do you have that itch?
It's amazing the coaching thing. It's a question that I've been asked a lot. I mean, especially the weeks after the TBT, and even when I was at the TBT, I tried to shut out everything at the TBT. Like, I wasn't on Twitter. Like, I didn't want. I was trying to go into full coach mode, I guess, and not read what was being written about us and whatnot, because it's just you really had to kind of stay focused and get to the next game and not kind of, I guess, rest on your laurels there. But no, I mean, quite honestly, it's amazing. People ask me that, and they're like, "Hey, does this make you want to get into coaching?" And I always tell them, like, I am in coaching. Like, it is, like, to me, this is, it's almost the perfect thing for me and for, I guess, the lifestyle that I live. Like, I have a fiance. We're getting married in May, and I've seen firsthand, there's different college programs that do it differently, but I've seen that nomadic lifestyle, where you're picking your kids up, picking your wife up, and hey, we each got a job at North Dakota State, so we're moving. Or maybe the staff gets fired, and you're just kind of going from one place to another. And I think growing up, that happened a lot, even with my dad's job. Like, we moved around a lot, and but we settled in Arlington Heights, Illinois, and it was nice to have roots, and it was nice to have a place and not be on the go all the time. And I think for the coaching aspect of it, the big thing for me was, I thought about it for sure. Like, hey, would I want to do this for a living? And part of me actually that's what I love about the TBT is, I love the job that I have currently, and the TBT kind of fills that void, the coaching void, if you will. So I don't know. I mean, if there was an opportunity that came along, there'd probably be some discussion about it, but ultimately I've loved what the TBT's brought, and I'm able to get my coaching fix, but it's also just and I'm able to go at, like, my own pace and kind of put those things together. So yeah, I mean, we'll see. Maybe things change down the road, but as of now, I'm completely content with not going fully into the coaching world.
Yeah, it's tough too, because in the coaching world, you know how it is. You got to break in at the bottom, and you're doing all the grunt work, and then you get to be an assistant at, Southwest Indiana, Northeast State, and you start out there,
Right.
and you've got to recruit. You got to build all new contacts and work your way up. So it's obviously a tough thing to do, to break into it. And if you got a good thing going, you don't want to mess it up. So going back, though, if you go back to one of the most important parts of coaching is recruiting. And so I'm going to toot my horn here. I'm a Mike LaTulip guy from back in the day, like 12 years ago, watching Mike LaTulip. I'm at this game, and I may have had a heads up to take a look at this kid, but I go and I watch this game, and I see there's this little scrawny white kid, and he's draining threes from everywhere. So I think that game you may have had I saw up, was it in Wisconsin? I think you had like 40 points, 41 points or something like that in Mequon, Wisconsin, up there at Homestead High School or something? Yeah. And so you hit draining threes right and left. They're running you off screens, and I think you guys lost the game at the end. But
we won. We actually won the game on a Darius Paul lane.
That's right. You're right.
Yeah.
They took you away at the end, but I mean, on the last play, and Darius Paul got you're right. That's right. But you had I want to say, did you hit like 10 threes that game, or 9 or 10 threes? It was crazy.
I actually do. I do remember the game, and I remember who we were playing. I remember, I don't know. That's just how I am. Like, I remember every little detail. I could tell you every team we played in that tournament. And yeah, I actually remember, like, it's so crazy. I remember seeing you in the stands. Like, in my mind, I can see exactly where you were sitting in the stands for whatever reason. Like, but yeah, that game, I remember there were so many college coaches at that game. It was filled because the team that we were playing had, 5 or 6 Division I, like, mid to high major Division I players. So there were just a lot of players at that game. And I remember after that game and really after that tournament, I was like, oh man, I did it. Like I did it. Like the offers are going to come pouring in now. Like I'm going to get this offer and that offer. I saw all these high major coaches at the game, and that was not how it went at all. And it was kind of my wake up call to, hey, I was just in denial for a long time with, I'm like, oh, length doesn't matter. Body type doesn't matter. Like you see the production I do, it doesn't matter. And then, when I got to Illinois, I was like, oh, this does matter. And because if it's like, hey, if I know the offense inside and out, and I'm going to make every play, I'm serviceable on defense, hey, I should play. But then, you look at a guy, I'm a sophomore and Kendrick Nunn's a freshman. It's like, they're probably going to play Kendrick Nunn. Even if he's just still getting up to speed, his length and his athleticism, like that's all a big factor. So when I was after that tournament, because they can't call you during the tournament.
Right.
But right after the tournament, I got offered on the spot by South Dakota State, who actually ended up being Coach Nagy ended up being my coach at Wright State the 5th year. Toledo wanted me to come visit. They didn't offer me, but they wanted to come visit. And then they said, hey, basically, if you come, we'll offer you. And then I think St. Mary's wanted me to come visit. And then Illinois or Boston College actually went out on a visit too. But those were really the 4 schools that reached out. No one else reached out. And I think that made me mad. And me, I don't know, like you could probably say back then, like I had an ego about me and didn't really see like the big picture. And once Coach Price called at Illinois, it was kind of like, he's like, hey, we want you to come down and play an open gym. And I was like, let's do it. Let's go. Because I'm so mad about what's going on with my recruiting that I want to go there. And I played well in the open gym. And I told my dad, I'm like, I can play here. Like, let's go do it. And so that's kind of how all that started. But going back to that tournament specifically, I could tell like, that was the first game I think of the tournament. And then the next game we played like it was like a Wisconsin Playground Elite, like one of those teams. And then our third game was against the Colorado Hawks, who had a guy on their team named Chris Thomas, who was the 6th ranked player in the 2013 class. And it's amazing. I remember like scored 30 plus in that game, was going back and forth with him all game. And Hoop Mixtape, the YouTube channel that puts out all the mixtapes, was at the game. Chris Thomas crossed me over, and if you watch the video, my guy came in to help and stepped his foot in. So like it's perfectly seamless. Like he crosses over, I go to slide, my teammate catches my leg, and I just drop to the ground. And that's the only clip. That's the only clip you can find on the internet from that game is me getting dropped. But I'm like, man, we won the game. Like I went off on that kid. But I don't know. That's just how it goes. But it brings up a lot of memories from that tournament. And I was thankful that you were covering it and you were putting some things out there about me, because I think that kind of snowballed into maybe some other coverage and kind of, I guess, getting my name out there a little bit from a recruiting standpoint.
Well, here we thought we were helping you, and we just made you an internet meme. Then you just became, falling down.
Yeah, so. No, it was. It's so funny because like the way that I saw it, I didn't even know. Like no one sent it to me. Nothing. I would always watch Hoop Mixtape videos, and they did like a 2011, like best of 2011. It's like an 8-minute video, and so it's like NBA, it's high school, it's college, and it was like 4 minutes in. Like I wasn't even expecting it. And it was just like, I watched Casey Hill, who went to Florida. He like went behind it. He like went around his back and dunked it. And then it was like, my clip was Casey Hill dunking on someone, me getting dropped, and then like Kobe doing something. Like it was literally like, it was just like it was bookmarked, I guess, between those. And I was shocked. I was like, oh my God, that was me. That's not a great video of me, but like I guess I'm on.
But I'm out there though. So all publicity is good publicity. All publicity is good publicity. Isn't that what they say?
We're still talking about it 12 years later, you know.
So and of course on your then you choose to go to Illinois, and then you go to Illinois. And so anniversary of today, you were on a recruiting visit for the Brandon Paul
Yep.
game, right? And so you were sitting there just probably down at the end of the bench there in the recruit section, right? I assume on the
Yep.
baseline there. And you
Yep.
got to watch that from up and close. What were your thoughts on that night?
Yeah, so the crazy thing was I had known Brandon. I played with Darius for a long time, and so I got to know Brandon a little bit. Obviously, know his family, and it was a huge game. I mean, you got Jared Sullinger and Aaron Kraft, William Buford. All those guys are out there. It's a really really good Ohio State team, and I remember just and it's funny after being Brandon's teammate, you can tell when he's going to have those type of games. We felt it before Gonzaga. We felt it like at the Maui, and it was amazing sitting there and seeing him and kind of I guess the seminal moment in that game was kind of the bobble, pick the ball up. It was like right in front of Bruce, like bobble, pick the ball up, throw it up at the end of the shot clock. Yeah, that was just kind of the moment where it kind of solidified, like, hey, this is Brandon's night. And I remember I was with my brother there as well, and I'm not sure I've ever seen anything like that. And that type of game live as a fan, I'm not sure I've seen that at the college level. What he was able to do that night, and it's even better when you can do it in a win, and it's not like, hey, you're down 15 and you just keep throwing in
Right.
shots to make it closer. Like every shot he was hitting was a pivotal shot that was propelling them to that win. So. And it made me even more happy for him. Like once I got to Illinois and was his teammate and just saw how great of a guy he was, how much he took me under his wing, and my freshman year as the only freshman, it almost made, in retrospect, that performance made me even happier for him. I'm like, dude, it couldn't have happened to a better guy.
Yeah, I totally agree on Brandon. I got to start watching him. I think he had it was his sophomore year. He came up on varsity. He scored had a 20-point half or something like that. And it was like, here we go. So I followed him throughout the whole career, and, throughout his whole professional career too. It's been fantastic. He's a really good guy. Special player, obviously, at Illinois. You have and you mentioned we were talking the shooting contest, right, and things, and you're a shooter, right? I mean, you were known as being one of the best shooters around, and you probably don't lose many shooting contests, and I didn't lose many either. I tell you, that's one of those things that sometimes you can just shoot, right? I mean, so it's just what you do. So,
Yeah.
but at the same time, you always go through a cycle. Like right now, Adam Miller has gone through he's a freshman at Illinois, known as a shooter. He struggled a little bit with his shot and missed some open threes, things that you expect him to make. And is what goes through your head. For me, it was always, if I have confidence, I feel like I'm going to make it. And sometimes you get in your head, you start doubting yourself a little bit. Do you feel like that's kind of where Adam's at, or what has been how do you get through maybe a shooting slump?
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is predicated on what your role is on the team. For a guy like Adam, he got up 11 threes in their game against Northwestern. So I think that's obviously great. But when you're a guy that, you don't really know, you have Io on your team, you have Kofi on your team. And when you don't know for sure how many reps you're going to get in a game, that's when that can start to snowball, because you start to put a little bit more pressure on each shot, right? So, if he starts off 0 for 1, that next shot, just inherently as a human being, you put a little bit more pressure on it, because you're like, I don't want to go 0 for 2. I don't want to miss my second one, because on top of that, like, I may only shoot 4 this game. I may only
Right.
shoot 3 this game, or I may only shoot 5 this game. So, as opposed to a guy like Steph Curry, who he knows every single game he's going to get, 12, 13, 14 threes up, and there's nothing you can do about it. So
Yeah.
he's able to shoot knowing that he'll get another one. Because, as a shooter myself, like when I went to Wright State, I believe I think I started the year, we were about 20 games into the season. I think I was at like 52%. And what ended up happening was, I think I had after the 52%, I had like a 5 for 27 stretch. And the really weird part about it is, if you would ask me like, hey, you're going to have a 5 for 27 stretch, I'd be like, that's impossible. Like, there's no way I'm going to, miss 22 of 27 shots. But the problem was I was only shooting maybe like 4 or 5 a game. So it was that same thing. And as opposed to, Kendrick Nunn at Oakland, who can start the game 0 for 5 from 3, but get out of the slump in the same game because he's shooting 13. Like there's something to that, where, it doesn't take, it's not cut over 3 games where you have the time to sit there and think about it and like let it marinate. It was something I realized like as I was going through it, that for a guy like Adam Miller, um, and you could tell like he had a different type of bounce to him, even on his jump shot. Like he was kind of pulling the string a little bit in the second half because he was just
Yeah.
confident, like it was
Yeah.
going up and it was going in. And I think that was, out of all the things that happened in that Northwestern game, there was a lot of history that was made in terms of, first half to second half and outscoring them by 40 and this and that. But I think Adam Miller coming out of that game extremely confident is as a shooter and as a player too. He made that great cut in the second half, and not only the great cut, but was able to finish, which he
Yes.
struggled with this year, kind of finishing amongst the trees, and you could tell that all. And for a shooter, like it, hitting shots and seeing shots go in, it just unlocks a little bit of confidence. It unlocks a little bit of athleticism, and I thought that for a guy like him, that's so important because you already got the Mariano Rivera coming off the bench in Curbelo. So having a guy like Adam be confident, it only makes this team more potent.
Yeah, it's one as a shooter. You miss a shot, you miss 2, 3 shots. But if you're gonna get, you can miss 4. You know how it is. Once you make one, and you make 2, like you feel like they're all going in. And so
Yeah,
he misses 4. Well, if you make the next 4, you're 4 for 8. That's 50%. But if you don't get to
right.
shoot the next 4, you're still 0 for 4, right? So everybody's kind of streaky, and I think the more attempts makes a big difference. Great insight there. As you transferred, right, and you went to Wright State as a grad transfer, obviously get more, you got more playing time, there, and but right now, you stuck it out for your time at Illinois. Right now, it seems like kids are jumping in the transfer portal at the semester. We aren't even making it through a full year. We're just out
Yeah.
after 3 months. What do you think that's about, and what do you attribute that to?
Well, I think now there's even more incentive to do it if they're gonna do away with the sit out year. But it's weird because there's a lot that go. Social media is so much different now, and I don't want to sound like the old like get off my porch
You're
guy,
dating
but like
yourself. You're dating
yeah,
yourself.
but it really is in 2012 and 2013. It was a lot. It was just a lot different, and what goes on when guys commit, and quite honestly, it's amazing. I think at times these kids that are transferring, it's not always, hey, I want to go to a better situation. I want to do this. I want to do that. I think some kids honestly just they want to go back through the process again, and they want to just they want to feel that again. They want to feel wanted again, because it's a really really it's a struggle for a lot of freshmen and for a lot of sophomores. Like you have this vision for how you think your career is going to go, and it doesn't turn out like that, or you're not the 20 point per game scorer that you thought you're going to be. I think anyone knows that that's just hard to do no matter what level you're at. But I think about a guy like Aaron Jordan, who had his struggles early on in his career, and come out on the other end of it, and junior senior year, I mean, he's lights out, and he was he was a big part of that team, not only just from a from a player perspective, but from a leadership perspective and from a locker room perspective. And so the Aaron Jordan thing is what I wish more people would understand, is, hey, I guarantee you, like when you're done playing, no one's going to remember the 8 points per game that you scored. No one cares. Like, I mean, it was like when I was done, I was like, I want to go to Wright State, and I just want to play again. And then I got done, and whatever I averaged my fifth year, 7 a game. Like, no one cares. No one cares what you shot from 3. No one cares that you had like the game winning steal in a game. But what does matter is the relationships that you build. And Aaron Jordan has, he's loved by Illinois fans. I know firsthand that there's been people that have helped him out, just in his career, just since he's been done. And, he's extremely loyal. And granted, there's different situations, right? Like if you're at Wichita State and you're like, I don't really like what's going on here. Like there's that type of time to leave, or just go to greener pastures. But yeah, no, I think ultimately what you start to see is kids, they don't want to see it through. And me too. Like I spent 4 years at Illinois, but I'd be crazy to tell you that I didn't think about leaving. It was weird just how it all worked out. My freshman year, I played in meaningful games enough to justify coming back for my sophomore year and putting on weight and getting back in there. And I think, and then Ahmad's waiver got denied. So my sophomore year, I played 15 minutes in the opener, and part of that was on me. Like there were times where I performed well enough in practice, and then got to the game, and it just it didn't translate for me. And I feel bad for my coaches because I feel like I let them down at times and wasn't showing in the game what I was doing in practice. And but yeah, I mean, I had that talk with Coach Gross. I was a sophomore, and it was Christmas. It was like Christmas break, and I'll never forget it. I was under the basket after practice, and he called me over and was like, hey, it's not going to break my heart. Like if you decide to leave, or if you, want to do this or want to do that, like in his words were like, I just don't want you to be miserable. Is what he said, because I don't know. I was the type of guy that, I was very edgy and very, I was disruptive, I guess, if you would say in practice, in terms of kind of mucking things up and kind of getting on guys or stirring the pot a little bit, like just trying to get the competitiveness going, and kind of getting in the mud, if you will. And I think sometimes that probably went a little too far. But I do think that, I'm really interested to see what happens with the automatic eligibility, I guess, if, for these people that are transferring, because I don't know if it's going to make it. I don't know if it's going to be even more the wild, wild west, because I mean, there's still so many people that are, that are transferring. So I guess it remains to be seen. But yeah, I was just happy that, and this happens at the high major level too. What I started to realize was, man, it doesn't matter where you go play. Nothing can take the place of being out there and playing. Like I was playing in the Horizon League, and which isn't a bad league. But we had nights where we'd go play at Cleveland State and there's no one in the gym. And you don't notice those things because you're like, man, I'm playing, like I'm in it. Exactly. You know what I mean? And that'd be my advice to people, like, hey, if you have to make the decision where if you're at a high major school and you decide that, maybe this isn't for you, you're not playing enough, you got to make the decision of, one, if you're going to stick it out, you can't be a problem. Like you can't be a problem. If you're going to stick it out, you're going to be a great teammate. You're going to be great in the locker room, and you're not going to be a problem for the coaches. It's like it's the Eric Musselman theory, where it's like, hey, I only want 8 guys that are active and eligible. I want maybe 2 walk-ons, and then we'll have probably 4 guys sitting out, because the 9th and 10th and 11th guy on the roster can implode your locker room. Yeah. It can happen. Like it's one of those things where it becomes like and everybody says like, oh, he's a cancer in the locker room, but guys like that who are unhappy can spoil a locker room. So it's being cognizant of that and realizing like, hey, if you go play somewhere, even if it's the mid-major level, there's a lot of high major players that don't want to go down to the mid-major level because it's like they feel like they failed, or they feel like they didn't live up to what they should have been. But once you take that step, you realize basketball is basketball, and it does feel good to be out there, and it does feel good to hit some shots and make a game-winning play on defense. And so that's, I guess, my long-winded answer to your question of the transfers. And there's just a lot to digest there, and I think it's something that I'd love to see more players staying at one school. But I also understand the other side of it, and guys wanting to maybe go play elsewhere. And so yeah, that's I guess those are kind of my takeaways from it.
Yeah, no, and those are good. I think that's very accurate. I think it's hard for kids. I deal thus in recruiting. It's like when I've got high school kids here wanting to go to college, they'll say, I'm D1. I'm going to go to D1. I want to do this. Well, sometimes you don't realize the level that is, and maybe you want to go to D2 and play, or even D3. I mean, my daughter went through this with, it's like, where can I go and actually have a chance to maybe compete for a championship and play and get a great education? I mean, so there's a lot of things that go into these processes that sometimes I think that we don't let kids, we don't look at that. We just see, I want to play it. I'm going to say so I can say I went here. You know what I mean? So doesn't really 100%. Fit.
Yeah.
Is there a so you've got a chance obviously to watch Illinois a lot this year? What are your just we'll sum this up. What are your thoughts on them? You think they can make a run and get to a Final Four this year?
I do. I do, and there's a lot of reasons for that, and that's not just me being a homer or being biased to the fact that I went to Illinois or know a couple of the guys in the program, and I try to watch them as objectively as I can, because over the years too, I mean, I was critical of them, over the last few years, and this year it's just it's a lot different. I feel like Coach Underwood's been able to to mold the program the way he wanted to where it's a player led program and guys are holding each other accountable, and believe me, it's no matter who you see in that top 25 ranking, that's not like that at every school, and some of that is kind of a facade, if you will, where teams are winning right now, but in order to advance in March, in order to be playing games in April, quite frankly, you need to have that type of locker room. Villanova's known for that, where they're very tight knit. They hold each other accountable. Jay Wright's obviously a really good coach, but this team, there's a lot to love about it because they can hurt you from a lot of different areas. I think last year they were great defensively. They needed to keep games in the 50s and 60s in order to win the games because, quite frankly, they just weren't as potent on offense. And now, you start to see the other side of that coin where, hey, we can win the track meet. We can win those grinded up games in the 50s and 60s. And that's those are the types of teams that I think can make it far in March and can make it into April because you can win in a myriad of different ways. And then not only that, you have a team that's been able to show that they're resilient, that they, you saw it at Northwestern, you saw it at Penn State, you saw it against Ohio, which I think, that Ohio game is kind of a microcosm of what could happen in an NCAA tournament. Because at the end of the day, man, it's not about how you win, it's about if you win. And I think back to, I believe it was the 2011 NCAA tournament. It was the second time Butler made it to the Final Four. They beat Old Dominion in the first round by 2.
Yeah.
And so what are we? Is Brad Stevens the coach of the Celtics if they get bounced in the first round to Old Dominion? I think it was like 61-59. They were able to beat them, and and they made it all the way to the championship. So it doesn't matter. I'm not big into, we're playing a bad team, we need to beat them by 25, and if we don't beat them by 25, it's a failure. That's not true, because the reality is this Illinois team and the way that they're viewed and the way that they're I guess their status in the conference right now, you're going to get everyone's best shot, and everyone's going to be amped to play you. So that's why you see, oh, we're getting off to bad starts, oh, we had a bad first half. It's because you're playing a completely optimized Northwestern team, you're playing a completely optimized Penn State team, but as you continue to play 40 minutes against Illinois, they wear you down. I think that's always been the common theme over the years, right? It's always been, why can't Illinois play a full 40 minutes? They were great, they're great in these spurts, and then they were letdowns
Right.
here in the middle of the first half, middle of the second half, and now Illinois is that team that you have to play 40 minutes against, and that's what's been really cool to see is, Elite is not comfortable with them. Now on the flip side of that, I think one of the downsides of this team and the negative of this team is the fact that they know that they can come back, and you don't want to play with fire every game and say, hey, we're down 10-12, but we're Illinois, we'll come back and win. It's great to have that confidence knowing that you can, but you can't be okay with that. You can't be okay with getting down, and once a team goes on a 7-0 run, we got to stop that, because there'll be games where you're down 13 at half and that team comes out and keeps clicking and you lose by 21, as opposed to thinking you're going to come back and win. So I thought this Northwestern game was a game that I thought epitomized who they are. They do throw haymakers. They are potent offensively. And you saw in the second half, part of that too was Northwestern missing shots, but Illinois had a lot to do with that. And if they can string that together for 40 minutes, I'm not sure that there's anyone in the country. And I'm telling you, Baylor and Gonzaga included, that can beat them if they're playing like that for 40 minutes. You got to think about Baylor right now. Baylor in Game 4 when they played Illinois is probably just about the same team that they were. You know, they were already senior laden, you know, upperclassmen laden. You know, they defend, and the Baylor that Illinois saw was about, you know, pretty close to the Baylor that you're going to see this entire season. The Illinois that Baylor saw is not the Illinois that you're going to see in February and March, and even right now. Like they just have a lot of guys in that team that have improved, Kofi included. You know, Curbelo, Adam Miller have gotten better, you know, defensively, and then having a guy like Jacob Grandison, who, you know, who you can bring into the Penn State game and who you can bring into the Northwestern game. And he was a massive, massive reason why they continued those runs. And he had that offensive rebound in both games. He had an offensive rebound against Penn State and Northwestern that led to baskets that, you know, that helped continue to propel Illinois to coming back. So, and then, you know, there's not much needs to be said about Io. You know what you're going to get from him every night. Like I didn't think he played well in that first half against Northwestern. And then you look up at the end of the game, you're like, he's 5 for 10 for 15, 6 and 5. It's unbelievable how he does it and how consistently he does it. So a lot to be hopeful about with this Illinois team, because I still think that they're not really even close to their ceiling. You know, as opposed to maybe in Iowa, like what you see with Iowa right now is probably what you're going to see with Iowa, you know, for the rest of the season. Like you want to be that team that's sitting there in the top 15, but like, hey, we continue to improve. You know, and it's as opposed to being a preseason number 3 team in the country and then kind of falling out of the top 25, and you're kind of like the Jekyll and Hyde. And this team is, and I think the Big Ten knows it. Like this is to me, this is the team to beat in the Big Ten because they can win in a myriad of different ways. So I'm excited. I'm excited to watch them tonight, and I'm excited to continue to see them kind of go through this Big Ten slate and learn a little bit more about themselves.
All right. Well, hey, I think Illinois fans are excited. Finally have a season where they feel like they're in that mix. You know what I mean? So it's been a while. But so, hey, we want to have you back again before the basketball tournament for sure, because you can preview it, because we know you're going to go in social media silence once the tournament starts. So we got to have you pregame. So we're going to have the preview of the tournament. Right. So hopefully we'll start getting those Twitter announcements at some point when we get those commitments and we get all those players. It's almost like following recruiting again. So if you can give me an insider heads up, just shoot me a message so I know it's coming, so I can kind of get prepared, and we'll get those commitments announced.
Yeah, those have been that's been some of the most fun, I think, being able to put those videos out and who's it going to be, and you know, it's been neat, and I think you're gonna have different guys this year too. You know, new faces as well. You know, some that I think obviously Illini fans are familiar with, and but it's funny, like what we have planned right now in whatever it is, January 10th, you know, may look a lot different in May. You never know with COVID, and you never know with guys having to go back overseas in the league, and it happened with Revante. You know, it happened with Matt Mooney. Revante had to back out. Matt Mooney had to back out 48 hours before we were going to Columbus, and the Cavs pulled him back. And so, you know, I always say, you know, the job is not finished until we take the court. You know, your roster basically isn't finalized until you're walking out there for warm-up. So it'll be fun. I'm looking forward to, you know, kind of that April time frame where we can start kind of rolling out, you know, these announcements again. And I've been, you know, keeping these guys warm in terms of checking in with them, and, you know, making sure that we have a roster out there that, you know, that can go and win this entire thing.
All right. Well, hey, we're looking forward to it. Thanks for coming on today. I appreciate it, Mike. And we'll stay in touch and go Illini.
Of course, man. Thanks for having me.